US Vice President Kamala Harris, who just reached the western Filipino island of Palawan, has reaffirmed Washington's determination to uphold international rules and norms in the South China Sea. The Vice President said Washington will provide new funding to Manila to cover the costs of new initiatives launched earlier this year.
As an ally, the United States stands with the Philippines in the face of intimidation and coercion in the South China Sea. As the United States has long made clear, we support the 2016 ruling of the UN Arbitral Tribunal, which delivered a unanimous and final decision firmly rejecting China's expansive South China Sea maritime claims. The tribunal's decision is legally binding and must be respected. We will continue to rally our allies and partners against unlawful and irresponsible behavior.
Now, Harris has become the first highest-ranking US official ever to visit the island of Palawan, which lies on the very edge of the disputed South China Sea. China, of course, earlier claimed some territories in the waters off Palawan and rights to much of the rest of the waterway. But a 2016 ruling by a tribunal in The Hague declared that the Chinese claims had no legal basis. Harris's trip to Palawan comes a day after she held talks with the Filipino President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. and reiterated the US unwavering commitment to defending the Philippines. So for more on this, back to WION's US correspondent Susan Tehrani in New York. Susan, can I ask you how this strategy of sort of reaffirming America's commitment in the region is playing out, particularly at the United Nations? Because there were moves yesterday by the United States to try and get the Security Council to issue a strong rebuke of North Korean behaviour recently, and that was absolutely headed off by a kind of alliance of Russia and China. So the United States, certainly at the United Nations, with regard to regional issues, is still facing enormous headwinds.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, you would think that an issue like North Korea would get that support that it needs at the United Nations. But no, regarding China and North Korea, it's interesting to note that they have a close special relationship. On the one hand, it's considered to be North Korea's closest ally right now. And China and North Korea, they basically have a aid and cooperation treaty, which is currently the only defense treaty that both countries have. And the United States has not been able to move around that and maneuver over that diplomatically. The Chinese ambassador said that the UN, which it was really referring to the United States, has to meet North Korea halfway. This puts the United States, the Biden administration, and at a time when, as you mentioned, Vice President Harris is in the region, in a very tough spot. Where does the United States stand in the region in its diplomatic efforts and its negotiating power when China is wielding this kind of maneuvering effort at the Security Council on the one hand, and on the other hand has somewhat of an influence in the region as well? What does halfway meeting North Korea mean? So it's going to be interesting to see how this administration during its second half is going to deal with China, and whether or not it will decide to be a little stronger than it has been and a little more forceful, at least after this incident, in combating China.